Hello, hello, I'm back with this nonsense again. Somebody watching already, huh? Surprising. So let's see. Thursday. Last week I didn't have a whole lot to talk about because I had the dentist appointment. I've already been over that. So this week I feel I should talk about something. I felt like I spent most of my time rambling on Monday, or Tuesday's stream. If I had a lot more people watching, it'd be a lot more engaging, have questions and whatnot. But beggars can't be choosers. Get there eventually, I suppose. Let's see. What should I ramble about today? Let's see. Oh, and if someone comes randomly walking through the background, my girlfriend's coming over shortly. She just got off of work, and she might stumble through the frames because she doesn't really care. So, what's this? As usual, I just had Mr. Momo in the background. This soundtracks are pretty much all I listen to when I'm writing in the first place. Let's see here. I suppose I haven't gotten around to posting the world map for the Rugenda story. Mostly because I haven't been able to change anything on it. The program that I do all of my mapping in for D&D campaigns and for all of the stories that I write and stuff like that, the program doesn't allow me to change stuff that's too old. So I can't open it anymore. It won't let me. For some obnoxious reason. The site is called Incarnate, I believe. I haven't opened it up in a while. Yeah, it's still there. This ancient frickin' site that I used to use. It's great for building maps and stuff like that, and drawing whatever the hell you want to. But I can't get into my old stuff in order to update it anymore. It allows me to save the files and do whatnot there, but I can't reopen the old files and change what's already there. It just doesn't let me. I don't know if it's too old or if just the program's not fully functional anymore. But out here, I suppose. All my stuff is still there. And I pull up an edit, and all it does is bring up a finished project that I can copy or save. The editor doesn't actually work anymore. Really disappointing, too, because I need to go back, and I can't change the names on anything or anything like that. Good program, but it's just the files are so old that I can't do anything about it. Here. I was on DeviantArt recently, posting about the channel and whatnot, but with all of their changes that they've made to the site, you can't access the forums without reverting to the old site anymore. So I don't think anybody even fucking saw it. Because there was also an inquiry about hiring a new artist, and I don't think it ever got anywhere. At least I never got an email. Maybe get in here again. It's one of my 20 passwords. And I legitimately have that many, too. The disappointing part. Um, couple deviations with the guy I wanted to hire to be my artist, but the shit he makes is so good that I can't afford it. Fantastic artist. There anymore. Oh, closed it because of no activity. Oh. Let's see here. Yeah, there's so much crap here that I could talk about, and I don't even know what to talk about. A lot easier when people ask questions, but it requires I find people on here who are willing to read my stuff in the first place. Again, beggars can't be choosers. A whole lot I can do about that. That's all my PDFs for D&D books. Why not? Reviews of these. Not this chatty this time around. I don't have a whole lot of focus, I guess. And so, great. What's going on here? What do you think my problem is? Mr. Only Malice. I'm more than open to suggestions. And again, it doesn't help that I didn't sleep much last night, and I fried myself at work. That's always fun. Well, I don't know either. I don't know what my problem is. I've been asking that every session of therapy for the last several months. Either way, welcome. Thanks for talking. Trying to do these twice a week just to chat about my Patreon and my books that I'm currently working on. Having people show up and be engaging is kind of difficult to do. Let's see here. From a 1 to 10, how funny was that? Like your comments to like formulating as a joke? Probably a 2 or a 3 at best. Could use improvement. Definitely something there. But, keep trying. Keep trying, my man. Let's see here. God, how many times have I even said that so far? think I'd have more focus with these things by now, but it's only the 4th time doing this. 2 weeks now. Nah. I don't have enough people to come and even harass me, let alone, talk, so... They haven't done anything ban-worthy yet, so... I am working on several books, actually, and a D20 engine, and a couple different video game ideas. If you're watching from Twitch, right down below the channel, there's a link to my Patreon. All of my stuff up there is free to view for anybody. I had it up there, so after a while, most of my content was only for people who subscribed, but obviously that wasn't getting very far. So I'm changing around the status of it to everybody who subscribes gets access to the newest content 1 month early. And it's just $1. I mean, $1 to support a guy who wants to be a professional writer for his life, for the rest of his life. I'm kind of sick of doing the whole working for everybody else and working in warehouses and shit like that. Worked in warehousing most of the years out of high school. Outside of college and working security for a year. But, yeah. Everything up there is free to read. Go right ahead. I mean, so one of my projects is on hiatus right now. My primary project. I have a ton there. But where I am writing now is pretty much filling in a gap. And I don't know how to fill the gap. I've just been on a bit of a writer's block. And I've been focusing my attention on several other projects. Panic is one of them. That seems to be a more popular one for some people. It has a more dark focus. Most of the people who've read it tell me that the first chapter just drags them right in. And if you read the first chapter, go right ahead. My first, let's see here. Yeah, my last post was from the 9th, so 3 days ago. I posted chapters 1 through 4 of that. So go ahead and give it a read. I'll be posting the 5th chapter of it within the next week or so. I had enough. Chapter 4 would be 2, almost 3 times as long as it is, but I felt consistency in chapters rather than cramming all of this in, of what happens into one chapter. I felt like dividing them up a little bit more. So that's all up there. On top of one of my game ideas is out there, Slayer. I'm working on the mechanics for it. I graduated college to make video games for a living, but I live in Wisconsin. We have Raven Software here, and they don't even make their own games anymore. They work on Call of Duties. That's it. They don't make anything else. They don't even need to hire any new blood, because what's the point in firing people if they're doing the same thing all the time, I guess. Last time they were hiring people, I was still in school, and they hired maybe 2 people who graduated out of my class. That was it. Yeah, there's no market for game companies around here. If I wanted to make video games for a living, I'd have to move all the way across the country in any 3 directions. So I'd have to be in Florida, California, or Texas. No real interest in any of them. I mean, my only choice, if I actually had a dream gaming job or animation or something like that, because I was trained in animation, I used to know Unreal Engine inside and out. But, haven't used it. Haven't used it in so frickin' long that I don't even remember how most of the mechanics work anymore. If I had a choice and was able to do something like that, probably the only relative gaming or animation company I would ever want to work for would probably be in Texas, and I'd want to work for Rooster Teeth, because I grew up on Red vs. Blue. And once they hit big with that, I've been following Ruby for several years. A huge fucking junkie of that. Me and my girlfriend both are. But, yeah. I'm not moving to Texas anytime soon. I don't even have the money to afford doing something like that. But going back to my, what I was ranting about earlier, I have two primary stories. One of them is a fantasy story, more revolving around magic and combat and stuff like that, and some love aspects. It's dorkier than some of the other things I write, but there's going to be a lot heavier stuff down the line. I just have to get there. I'm struggling with the in-between what's going to happen. And then I was talking about Panic. Panic is it's a basic on psychics and mental illness. So the psychics had gained their abilities by going through a mental breakdown of some kind. So in the first chapter of it, as I said before, a lot of people are drawn into it because the events that happen in the first chapter unlock the main character's powers, and she doesn't even know it until much, much later. Let's see. Slayer is the video game I was talking about. I'm working on all of the mechanics for it, building how the weapons work and things like that, and how it, all of the internal mechanics. And I'll probably have to ship that one off to another type of company for them to build the game, and I'll just have to oversee it or something like that. It's boiled down, it's the concept of Lovecraftian first-person monster slaying and hunting and stuff like that. Focusing stuff like Dishonored and Thief games. I mean, some of my favorite titles of all time are stealth games in that aspect. But we don't have a good... from building a game from scratch, yes. Extremely. If you see any type of dev out there, like the guy who created Fez by himself, that is a colossal workload. If I were to make a game even on that level, I would have to quit my job and focus 10 to 12 hours a day for at least 2 years to have something that stable. And that's not even a joke. There's a reason that video games, even games on Call of Duty's level, they have hundreds of employees working on stuff that... Yeah, 10 to 12 hours for 2 years to make a game on Fez's level by yourself. Because programming itself is a goddamn nightmare, but building mechanics, deciding how it wants to work... Yeah, there is a lot more to game development than just, let's make a game. Animation, rigging, which is... rigging is a term for 3D animation. Inside of a model, there is a set of bones. Just literal sticks with points on them. So if you're modeling something and you want to rig it for animation, you have to attach bones. So in a hand, you have a bone for every joint that's going to be moving. And then you have to animate moving them, either by keyframe, which is going through piece by piece by piece from one frame to another, and moving every single piece as it goes through. Which is ridiculous because some of the best animations from Halo 4, Halo 3, Halo ODST, one of their animators at Microsoft who did the Killslam animations are keyframed. And they are horrifically hard to do, but they look beautiful. The other way to do it is obviously motion capture, where you have someone in the suit, they have the point balls all over every major joint, and they're only on the joints. I actually had a teacher who focused on motion capture, who was teaching me in school, has his own studio in Madison that only does motion capture. And it's actually really cool because he does that not only for video games and things like that and outsourcing to companies for video games, but for movies and other things like that that use 3D animation. But that's just the animation portion. That's not counting programming for mechanics, how things interact, modeling things in the model in the environment itself. So environment building, interactivity, building, programming key reactions. So I hit this button, something happens over here. There's so much into actually making a game that a lot of people don't realize. Doesn't matter if it's in a first-person shooter or a 2D side-scroller, there is a ton to it. But that's why I'm working on building just the mechanics of it. Just, I want to know how, this is how I want it to work, and then I send it to somebody else to work on it. And that's one of the more time-consuming things, I suppose. I don't have a huge focus on it right now. I want to be, through the Patreon, I want to have enough patrons where I can quit my job and focus 8 to 10 hours every single day doing nothing but this stuff. And I would love to do that. But that's really hard to do, as I said. Finding people out there who are willing to contribute while still maintaining a full 9-to-5 job as I am right now, and trying to have enough content to keep people coming in, and then making enough content to sate them for however long. Let's see here. But yeah, that's another one of the projects. If you go onto my page, I also have just a bunch of stories and things like that I've written for D&D characters and whatnot. I have all sorts of things up there as well. Just free stories. Things that I've come up off the top of my head. I have another story I'm working on that stemmed from a campaign my friend was running in another dice engine called Mechton. The entire thing behind Mechton is anime robot fighting. And he only ran the campaign twice with our group because we were too powerful and he didn't know how to balance us out using the equipment that he let us have. We got a little silly. But the story that I learned from that is going into another project called Deus. And the pilot for it is further down in my posts on there. Yes, too powerful. So he made mechanics around elemental equipment, and the way we learned how to utilize them, and how we were rolling for it, and the skills that we were using to do it, we killed a boss in 2 turns. A boss that was supposed to nearly kill all of us. And, yeah, he wasn't too happy about that. Well, let's see here. And half of it is my fault. I'll flat out admit half of it is my fault. The way that we ended up, the 4 of us, the entire campaign was based around 4v4 mech combat. And our team ended up becoming known as the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And I was Death. And the way I had mine built is, in one hand he had a scythe, just a one-handed scythe that dealt cryo damage. And the way it functioned in Mechton is, it slowed your enemies and made their armor brittle. And on the left hand was a claw that utilized magma damage that just burned through enemies. I'm the only person in that campaign who killed people relatively easily and on accident, because they wouldn't give up, and freak accidents. And this is supposed to be like sanctioned fights. Like government-run football, like fights. So there's rules and regulations, and killing is very frowned upon. It happens, but it's very frowned upon. So yeah, we were a little too broken because people kept dying. And he wasn't too happy with that either. Let's see here. Moving on to another project would be Soulblade, is the dice engine I'm working on. Building it from the ground up. Most of the beta stuff is down there in my project posts. Building a dice engine that's super easy and to build and to learn, focusing less on feats and skills and stuff like that. Basically, you pick a class, you pick a race, each of them has one ability, you're done. Roll stats. That's it. And you advance after you hit a certain level threshold. You can advance into another class in a similar way to Fire Emblem, if you've ever played any of those games or heard of those games. Fire Emblem, you use an item and you advance a class based on what your class already is. So Cavaliers become Paladins, Knights become Generals. I've been playing the Fire Emblem games since they came out in the US. I'm obsessed with them. The newest one has taken way too much of my time before a couple other games taken up even more of my time. But it also has a focus of, instead of having 6 stats, you have 10. So what I mean is, instead of just having strength, charisma, dexterity, instead you're focusing on, let's see here, let me bring up my overview because I didn't open. I butchered charisma. I hate charisma as a skill. It encompasses way too much, and every single campaign I've ever been in, D&D, Pathfinder, every single edition, anybody who utilizes charisma is fucking broken. Absolutely fucking broken. We had a guy who was a bard who just subverted boss fights. And that's all he did. He was so charismatic and he roleplayed it so well, he subverted every single boss fight, and we never died. And it was like 6 sessions in a row of, we didn't even fight anything. He just subverted the fights. Or we killed the target before anything else happened, stuff like that. It was just too easy and just kind of boring. So I butchered charisma and divided it up into beauty and eloquence, which will have their entire own focuses. Because you can have somebody who's very wordy and very eloquent without them looking good. Or you can have somebody who looks really fucking good, but not have a good way with words. And I hate that charisma in D&D automatically means both. So I butchered that, replaced it with beauty and eloquence, and I also added in spirit, instinct, and faith. Faith is mostly in there around a similar basis to Dark Souls. So faith powers divine-based spells, and as well as dark-based spells, because the aspects behind divine and dark magic in Dark Souls is fantastic, and I'd like to utilize something like that in a dice game base. Spirit is in there because I feel there's an underutilization of supernatural and just like Sixth Sense feelings in a sense. This instinct is pretty much the same on a natural level. So spirit and instinct are pretty much the same thing. Only one is natural, one is supernatural. So that would bring up the total stats: strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, spirit, beauty, eloquence, instinct, and faith. So 10 stats instead of 6. I feel like that would open up more freedom with skill building and with character building and things like that. Sacking the AC system. I hate AC. I fucking hate how AC works in most D&D systems. It works, but I hate how it works. Just because you have more armor doesn't mean you're harder to hit. It means you're easier to hit. It just doesn't do anything. Which is why I sack AC and instead... Yeah, I've had a few people say that, and I've tried to run playtests of it, but my friends are very fickle, and all of my friends who remain, who haven't moved out of a state or are currently deployed overseas or something like that, all of the ones who are left are severe introverts, and getting them in the same room is a goddamn nightmare. But, I changed out AC, and instead all armor is just damage reduction. Straight up damage reduction. And instead of having you roll against something's AC, I replaced that with a you're rolling against the enemy rolling. So in a simple term, you roll to attack, they roll to either block or dodge. So if they roll to dodge, they take your roll against their roll. Whoever rolls higher wins. And it happens. I also hate that AC, if you meet with a high number against AC, nothing happens. So I implemented a scratch and a graze mechanic. So if you have the exact same number, you do half damage. Pretty simple. But if you attack and you have within one or two of the hitting them, like you would almost do full damage, or you would almost graze them, you would scratch them and you do half of the damage, just the weapon die roll. No stats, just the weapon die. And then blocking would be similar to dodging, where instead you add your dexterity and your instinct minus your armor's weight, or whatever reductions you have from that. You'd take a 5-foot adjust if you win. If you're dodging, or whoever is dodging wins, that's what happens. If you block, you can block full damage from the front, half damage from your from anything in your flank, but if they hit you from the rear, you can't block at all. And blocking would be your strength, your constitution, and your shield or weapon or whatever, taking the full brunt of the damage. Anything else would probably go through. Well, no, that doesn't make sense. That's just the block roll. So, attack rolls versus block or dodge, rather than all of that. I also want to change it around to a mana system, which is what Spirit is halfway for. Shit. I'm rambling a lot at this point. I'm actually 4 minutes over my intended half an hour. But, yeah, I could probably ramble for a while longer, but I have plans the rest of the evening. So, thank you for watching. Thanks for chatting with me. I do these streams every Tuesday, every Thursday at 6 o'clock. So, the same time every week. As I said before, check out my Patreon. Give my stuff a read. I'll be posting there more often, hopefully. I'm going to be doing a lot more updates as time goes on. Otherwise, on the weekends or occasionally during the week, I do gaming streams and stuff like that. You can probably check out my other stuff that's all on Twitch and all on YouTube and all that. So, for the time being, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Sorry about that. I do see your question. Before I take off, I suppose I'll answer your question. Thank you for the follow, by the way. I do stream a lot of Siege. At least I used to. Most of my friends have stopped playing it recently. Love playing it. Tired of not playing it by myself. So I haven't done that a whole lot recently. Most of the time, I haven't even played with my friends online. So I've been playing Sea of Thieves recently on Xbox. I have every console under the sun because I worked my ass off. I might as well spend it. Um, Other than that, most of my streams are on the Twitch channel. You can check all of my streams that are on there. I'm gonna try and do a stream this weekend for games and stuff like that. Mostly because I turned 28 on Saturday, and I want to do something before I go to a concert that's going on Saturday night. Otherwise, I'll be streaming Sunday as well. So, other than that, thank you for the follow, and now I will talk to you later.